Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Hello and welcome to Theoryforge Chronicles. I am Phantom X, of course, as always, joined by Sog, Legendary Notoxin, and Diggs, and our special guest, Polite, the Grand Duke Polite. How is everybody doing?
Doing great.
Well, it's great.
Yeah, so this is for everyone who didn't watch Wednesday. We're just doing a couple of extra shows a week, so for the next 2 weeks, and having special guests like the Grand Duke Polite here. I'm sure everyone already knows you at this point within the community, but before we get started, if you kind of want to, I guess, tell everyone your role and what your role within Illyria.
Sure. So I have the extreme honor of being the Grand Duke of Sanctaphandri, which is a constituent duchy of the Kingdom of Ashland on NA West Angelica. It's basically my job to make sure my people are happy, they have a good experience in Illyria, and they can succeed as much as they choose to do so. We'll see what actually ends up when we get in game, but yeah.
Cool. So we are all here for DSS. So we'll just jump right into that. Everything's rolling. So how do you feel like things are kind of going along so far?
Man, I am ecstatic. For people who haven't picked yet in DSS who might be watching, that moment when you click the territory that you're going to be, that's a good moment. Typing in the name, submitting it to SERP. It's good. It's gone really well so far. I think there's been some small hiccups that I've seen. My selection went perfectly, but honestly, great job from SBS. The map app has been amazing, and the process is great.
Give that for me with how critical I was about the Searing Plague app. I may have looked a little bit more at this than I should have, clicking inspect buttons, but it's pretty neat and it's done really well. I'm real happy with it. It's taking away time from my work day. I write a little bit of code over here and then I click around the map and I'm like, did anybody do that pick? I know we're one pick short today. Where is it? What's going on? Next week is going to be crazy.
So where exactly is Sanctaphandri?
So Sanctaphandri on the NA West Angelica map is the very south side of Ashland now. It's these two duchies. If I could bring up a map, I would, but it's two duchies next by side. It has a large coast to it. We're really looking forward to the interactions we're going to have with Eastern Valyria, Tyria, Riftwood, and so on in that location.
And is this Acker Ground? What's the name of this? Acker Grove. Is that the capital?
The capital county is Papalias Cardania. It's in the western side, and then
okay, I see it. So what is Acker Grove? Oh, that's right, because we already picked these. I remember now. That's right. We picked these names like a year ago, right?
When they were asking for names for the random domains, yeah.
Yeah.
We were submitting them and such.
Right, I forgot about that. Cool.
Comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, you go right on ahead.
No, I was interested to know how Polite feels about this area, what he likes about it.
Yeah.
What are the highlights in his vision?
Sure. Let me go through it then. So I will start off by saying this wasn't my primary pick location. Initially, I wanted to play Sanctaphandri in the locations that Ignis and Catandriel, which is the King and Queen's Duchy in Ashland, respectively, in. The king did decide, however, to go with the location that he has for the Royal Duchy. I was completely fine with it. It's a really good duchy. It's one of the reasons I wanted it, and it's a really great Royal Duchy, and so we had to adjust, and I see that as really kind of indicative of a lot with domain selection as we go into Count Week is that, you have to be flexible. You have to see there's a lot of great areas. And to then answer your question, this area that I did end up in Sanctaphandri, and is one I really loved. It's a huge amount of coastline, which I've had people from, before we even knew tribes existed being, are we going to be on the coast? And I was like, I sure hope so, but we'll see, buddy. And to have as much coast as we do, it's great. I love river systems. So this land, the way it can connect the interior regions to the coastline, shipping goods down, having tribes come in, especially being in the south of the kingdom, it connects a lot with what hypothetical trade we might see coming from the south of the continent. So Tyria and Riftwood especially. I'm really happy Sanctaphandri is in that position. We're kind of the gateway into Ashland in a way. Similar to that as well, tribes, immigration and such. We might see, where we have a small amount of where in the south of Sanctaphandri, we might see populations of Tor, Eska, Granoa come up. It would be really awesome as well. So overall, it's a lovely location. I love it.
What would you say to somebody who is thinking about placing a duchy in South Gull Reach?
I would say, by all means, please come. I would love to see that duchy filled. At the moment, we don't have anyone who's interested in Ashland, but we're a kingdom that has always maintained that if we had randoms come in, our first goal would be how can we work with these people? How can we integrate them into our community and show their leadership too? It's actually to take something from my king. He's always said the greatest leaders that Ashland's going to see probably don't know what COE is yet. They're going to be the people that come in on launch day and they say, this game's amazing. I want to get so much into it. I have so much to offer. And they might go far beyond what, myself has ever done for Ashland. So, if you're a random Duke, if you don't know where you want to be, but you want to do Naren and you're not quite sure about being surrounded like that, by all means, come in. We want to have you flourish in that location. If I can set up deals, if you can get your trade goods out across the water and down to the south or so on, we're happy to work with you. So
that is the most open and inviting response that any kingdom or any representative of any kingdom has put out at the entirety of domain selection.
Just the polite thing to say, all right?
Mm-hmm. That it is.
So you have neighbors across the ocean. You're real close to Tyria. You border Valyria and share a huge bay with them. How does that fit in with how you're feeling about the placement?
Overall, it's really good. Over in Tyria, Edward Bishop is a great monarch. I haven't had the chance to interact with him as much as I would have liked in the past, but as soon as I made my selection, or actually, my apologies, on the day of my selection, before I had selected, he was congratulating me and saying, "Hey, we're gonna see where the great Salukre ends up and such." So I'm really looking forward to working with Tyria. South of the Royal Duchy, they have Thorn with Syntax and Miss Cersei running it. Great friends that I've had wonderful interactions with. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they develop and influencing that and them influencing me in turn. With Valyria, we share a land border. So I've already been in talks with the Duke across the way from me. I've talked with their king. We'll, of course, see how things progress in time. Everyone's happy and friendly nowadays, and it's good to be that, and it's good to develop that. We'll see how things change in time in Illyria, but for now, I'm quite confident in developing ties and at least getting the basis of the game down before we start worrying about.
And the Duke in Whitefeather Cove, is that Nazrab, or is that?
That is Duke Nazrab. Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Nice guy for my drag.
Here's a question. Looking through the duchy itself, as well as kind of from the zoomed out view, it's predominantly woodlands. I mean, it's predominantly forage. Almost everywhere, forage is the most abundant, most or second most abundant. And then there's a lot of wood, a lot of farm towards the south and the east. Yeah, and then. Obviously the entire kingdom is bereft of sand, but what do you plan to do with forage being such a major component? Is that something that you're planning to utilize for economic advantage? Is it something where you're just going to try to have a jobs program where everyone can go out and forage or something for the duchy. What do you plan to do with that set of resources, being your major picks, the biggest ones that are available for you?
Right. So we'll have to see what the flora and fauna of the various biomes ends up being. Right. We've seen a bit from Soulbound, specifically the more northern biomes, but we're not quite sure. There's a lot of forage going on. Does that mean there's plants and herbs and so on that appear in Sanctaphandri in that Ashland area that don't appear in other kingdoms? I feel like it does seem to indicate that, or at least there will be some uniqueness there. So I would absolutely like to get that utilized, whatever the benefits are for the local population, as well as seeing about shipping it out. If it's the case that the deep woods in the north part of the duchy can be really utilized for growing things, and we just ship it down the river down to the south and out to Thierry or Riftwood or Valyria or so on, absolutely would love to do that. There is a general feeling for me that farmland is a more reliable form of food, especially when we have to worry about these large settlements coming in, sustainability things. So I think we will be looking at land reclamation very quickly to see how much farmland we can get to augment the eastern ones that we already have in the duchy. But I feel like that foraging has a lot to offer us. Besides that, the wood, where we have close to us the grassland steppes of Tyria, the more wetland marsh area in the south, Riftwood, which has tropical wood, but maybe it doesn't have the northern wood available to it. And then, of course, the north half of Ashland is, as a few people got a little concerned with map iterations, doesn't have wood in that northern half of the kingdom. So wood will probably be another major export we'll be looking at getting routes and such set up for.
Makes sense.
This leads directly into the question that Neurotoxin wants to ask every single guest we have.
Yeah.
When you guys had Soleil, I wanted to answer it, so by all means.
So the question, just a refresher for folks in chat, for all of the hubbub going on and words said and feelings hurt and loud voices of vocal minorities coming up and doing what they did, how much did all of the resource shifting actually affect, either in your perspective, Ashland as a whole, or then looking at where you were potentially going to grab and then what you actually did grab? How much did it actually affect it?
For me personally, I can say it was near zero. From before we even had the duchy lines on the map, I was pretty sure that if we got Kingdom 2, I wanted to place in the current place that Ignis and Cathandri are. When we got the maps, it only solidified that for me. Through iterations, how much I like those areas changed, but they were always my top picks. So for me, it didn't change it at all. The same thing, honestly, with my second choice being the duchy that did end up getting of the Anchor plus Hard Side. Throughout those iterations, I love those places. I do know other kingdoms had a lot of different changes of iterations. I didn't pay too much to it because I've always known I was going to be in Ashland. So that was always the only realistic thing for me. So that might be an influence as to why I didn't care as much with them. I can say for Ashland as a whole, it didn't really affect much of our Dukes. One, and I hope he's fine with me saying it. The one it did affect, because he's placed now, is our Duke Artorian, who's it says Vexor on the map for his duchy now. He was looking at Herathi at one point, going double Herathi, but with the modification that lost trees in that region, he did go back to wanting Naren. But overall, I think that was the only one, and he wasn't like torn up about it. Like,
gotcha.
Oh, Casper, you took my trees. It wasn't. So.
Cool.
So where is it that has no trees? Has no wood, I should say.
The northern half of Ashland.
The northern half of Ashland, it's called
I see what you're saying.
Alpine.
I got you.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because trees don't grow in really high altitude, cold places of any hypothetical world.
And if they did, the goats would eat them.
I think there might be quite a few goats up there.
But that's basically kind of what I was wondering, is really the overall impact, and it sounds like the answer is no, not really.
No,
just
not really.
Changes happened, it's good to acknowledge, but
I could say even if we hadn't had our kingdom selected at that point and we had access to the map apps and so on through the iterations, I don't think Ashland's as a kingdom's picking would have changed much through them.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Not based on a game that's meant to change, right? Meow.
We have always specified that flexibility is the most important thing to keep in mind. You gotta be flexible.
Yeah.
So I want to tag along to this resource idea, and Hruthi is one of the, from what we know from the community, one of the more popular races or tribes that people want to play. But in Ashland, I think that it's the lack of trees that is the reason why there are 4 Hruthi duchies unchosen in Ashland, but in Aranor, only Luxspring, which potentially could be a highly contested duchy and not the safest place unless you have good support from the Queen and Huldrick and your other neighbors. They're filled up. So the primary Hruthi biome appears to be less attractive for Duke's picking than, and I don't know if that's from the perspective of communities people have joined already, or because they don't know how to handle not having wood everywhere.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I can't speak for them, but I do think it probably does have something to do with the trees. In fact, in some part at least. I think something as well, when you're looking at it on the map, just looking at them visually, that Aranor, Hruthi biome set of duchies versus the Ashland ones, one looks pretty bleak, one looks kind of nice and inviting in like a fantasy map that you would typically see. I think people might be sleeping a little bit on that area. I think something with that is it's a more barren on the surface, but maybe much more of a subterranean area that you need to look into. And if you want a mountain home, I think that's where you want to go. But I hope it gets filled with Dukes. I think a lot of it is as well. People have been bound with communities for a while, so they're looking at that. But we'll see how it develops in time. For me, I don't see the lack of trees as much of a problem, but maybe.
Well, I agree, because I think that if you're really into being Hruthi, that your tribe, from all of the write-ups, it was about tribes have adapted to their primary biome. Mm-hmm. So if you want to play Hruthi, there are 4 duchies sitting there in Ashland where you could go have the best Hruthi life you've ever had.
Yeah.
Or 8 or 12 Hruthi lives, however much you want to spark. Spark the hell out of them Hruthi up there.
At this point, has there been anything that has been surprising, either with the as we moved along within Ashland, or anything that's
with
caught you off?
Selections or the app or anything?
Just anything that was unexpected that maybe directly affects you or affects the kingdom or the duchy.
Let me think. Super surprising. I can't say I have seen anything that's been too super surprising, honestly. I was nervous as heck going into my selection because I wasn't sure if what I was looking at was going to get taken up before I got it, but everything went as we expected. We kind of did a lot of internal discussions of okay, how many Dukes are there, so we can estimate how many times between picks. We know this guy's high, so he's probably at this position, and so we had a fairly good idea of who was picking when and what they would most likely go for, but it was good to get to it and go well, so to speak. So nothing's been too surprising for me. There have been a few small drama things on West about some selection points, but I think it's been pretty smooth so far.
The biggest surprises for me, actually the biggest surprise happened 15 minutes before we started talking here, that somebody selected Lantern Shore in Tyria. And it was from what we understand, one of the undecided dukes who reached out to Tyria, and it's the first placement in the tidal marsh biome. Has a whole lot of coastline on the east side there, and could be another interesting trade arrangement for you there, Polite, because it's.
Oh, I have not seen that. That is cool. I was wondering why that duchy had taken so long. Because I'll be honest with you, if my kingdom had ended up in that kingdom, I would have probably taken Lantern Shore and Shadow Spring. I love that coastline. I love the Torres, and so I look forward to whoever is there to try.
Well, you can come visit me in Teresk area anytime.
I'm curious about professions and how has that played a role in your how you envision running your area?
Absolutely. The professions are an interesting one because the information that we get from the map, it gives you, the top professions and the notable ones there. But you're not getting quite the entire picture. You don't know exact proportions. This says the top profession is farmer. Does that mean farmers are like 60% of the population? Or are they like 30%? And all the other ones are smaller chunks as well. So to an extent, it has definitely informed a lot of things, especially when I was looking at where I wanted to put my capital for the duchy, because there's sort of a few natural places, but at the same time, there are places with very interesting profession setups. Another thing as well is being that Sanctaphandri has so much coastline, I'm looking a lot at defending that coastline, and so sailors, boats, and such come into play. And if you've done a lot of looking at the map, you'll probably notice there's not very many ports. Sailor doesn't come up too often as a profession, et cetera, things like that. So there was a lot of looking into that one, especially for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What is your thought on sustainability? It's been a huge topic of conversation in judging picks and thinking about it. I'll throw out real quick that my thought is that right now thinking about sustainability is silly because there's so much that we can do in the future. But how did that factor into your pick? Like right now, the capital of your double duchy has 575 to 778 population, 116 to 157 parcels. I don't know where it shows up for real on the sustainability because I'm logged in right now. I should have logged out.
It has the one little red bar. It's okay. The lowest it can go.
Okay, so for me it's like less than a bar looking at it. But is that a concern for you?
It's definitely a concern. At the same time, though, let me properly couch how I want to look at it. So it's a concern, but I feel like it's a concern that is less on an individual player and more at this point on the COE community as a whole. You look at any server's map and you see how many capitals are popping up. I think we went 2 days worth of Duke picks almost before a duchy got picked that didn't have a capital as its capital, and so I'm concerned. I'm going to be looking at what I can do for that capital as soon as possible to get it set up. But at the same point, I think it's sort of a group sort of concern that the entire community is jumping into, and some people will deal with it, some people won't, and we'll get story from that. The other side of it as well is, if you can't keep a settlement sustained, it's not the end of the world if there's migration to other parts of your territory. If what it means in the end is that population goes down from 700 in my capital to 500, but that's 200 more people spread out and making it productive in the duchy, that's not a bad result, right? More of the concern is like famine, unrest from that, things and so on. So looking at it, I'm not completely scared about it. I did have the chance to add another county worth of parcels and population onto my capital because I bought a county right before picking, and I just decided not to do that and just take the EP conversion because I felt what I was getting was already going to be enough.
So you converted one of your previous counties because you can't convert an upgrade county.
Right.
I was actually wondering what your plans were for spending EP for improvements. What your goal was? Were you looking to put the main investments into your infrastructure and professions and all that sort of stuff?
Absolutely. I can rank that really quickly for you. Primary concern to start is military fortifications. Forts along the border. There's a few places in Sanctaphandri where it kind of has a gap of military settlements that I would like to build up. Initially, the second highest priority is infrastructure, especially roads. If you take a large look at a duchy, usually it looks like there's a few places where you can see, it'd make a lot more sense if a road went from here to here, and it just doesn't exist yet. So linking those up will be a secondary priority. Tertiary to that, I would probably be looking at port facilities, what those might entail in Illyria. Do we need to make river ports? Do we have a river in a certain area, but there's basically no infrastructure on it, and so you want to look into getting a port and some ships and some boats out there quickly so people can have some kind of transport means around that. Fourth, after that, I would probably be looking at individual improvements in terms of county stability. And so what I mean by that is, what does a county have set up? Like, does a county have a large amount of, that's a good example. Does a county have a large amount of groves of some type of herb, but they don't have the people or professions to use that? And for that reason, they kind of lack an income stream besides, lumber chopping. Okay, well, put in a little bit of EP to that, get that as a profession going. Now that county can sell to the county next to it. County next to it is getting that product as well to help it out. And so, this is better. So basically looking at and seeing if there are minor tweaks or improvements can be done to help all of these work together. And so on and so far down.
Gotcha. Cool.
So wait, so how does that work? What do they do with the EP? How does you allocate EP to a certain thing, and then what happens from there? What do the devs do?
So from what we have been explained so far with EP in the exposition store, the implication is once you get into exposition, you'll have the store available to you with your EP points. You spend something, and then you have it there, and you can make use of it. So I might go to the border very quickly and see, hey, there's an open plain here. It'd be very easy to just march through here, open up the EP. Can I buy a fort or a wall or something and plop it down there? Okay, what's next? Oh, well, there's a river here. It's a completely undeveloped river with trees all around it. Okay, can I buy something from EP to clear out that land and then put a pier here, plop it down, and continue on? It's hard to say for certain because they did give us that EP kits and protection thing a long time ago, but then they kind of went and said, we're going to have to look more at the EP store and balancing it out. So we have to think in very broad terms of what might actually be on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to slightly. Do you have a follow up to that, or can I
Go ahead, sneak in
a little bit?
Sneak in.
So we have a count in this group who is planning on placing in your duchy. So
wait. Wait. I'm being quiet for a reason. Where's this going?
How do you feel about working with the counts in your very large double duchy? What are you going to do for them? What kind of freedoms do they have? What do you expect from them? Tell me, what is it like to be a count in your duchy?
Oh man, well I don't know if I can. Are you asking FanMX that? What it's like to be a count?
I'm asking you that because you're the dude.
I can make an assumption as to what I imagine they enjoy it. At least they're scared enough to tell me they enjoy it. No. Let me go back to an earlier part you said in terms of that question of what do I expect of them? What do I foresee in terms of what they need to do on their side, and how I interact and work with them. So the first thing I see for counts is at the end of the day, you're looking at your territory, you have people in there, you have mayors, and you need to, as much as you can, ensure that they are safe, stable, and have the opportunity to prosper. They don't need to necessarily be prosperous, but you need to give them as much as you can that opportunity, and make sure major disruptions to that aren't being done. That might be a count that decides he wants to do strip mining in an area, which causes some environmental effect and gets an important forest for your county destroyed or so on. So
strip mining doesn't exist.
Well, that's an example.
That's
sorry.
fake news. No, I'm just saying that's fake news.
Let's assume some hypothetical ore mining.
Excuse me, we expect our guests to talk about real things, not fake things.
Not fake news. But as a count, you need to be looking out for that. You need to be making sure that the actions you're taking aren't making your county unstable. The Duchy government can come in when that starts to be a problem, but at the same time, it's your duty to make sure it's not getting to that point as much as it's within your power. You also want to be looking at your neighboring counties, how you can interact with them. You don't have responsibilities necessarily to encourage or make sure they're doing well, but at the same time, as much as you can synergize and benefit both yourself and them, it's a good thing to be doing. For the Duchy government perspective, from my opinion, the main things the Duchy provides is the military protection and security, coordinating that at a very high level, which I see counts focusing entirely on their own self-defense, and then the Duchy coordinating any larger military plans. And the second thing being justice dispensation. So, when we do have to take care of traitorous elements or bandit clans or so on and so forth, if it gets to that level above what the county can deal with, then, Baron appointed justice come in and start taking care of things. But besides that, though, for counts, I want them to have a very free hand in terms of how they really approach their county. As long as you are kind of meeting your minimums in your county isn't descending into chaos, whatever you feel is the way to go about developing your prosperity is the way I want you to go about doing it. So I feel counts in my duchy have quite a lot of freedom. I usually do not implement, you have to do this on them. Usually when I do, they're quite happy to, but I try to keep it to the minimum of ensuring a stable duchy for them.
Yeah, I'm more of a lurker within the Discord and community, so, but it's been nothing but stable, so.
There's a few of them in the chat I can see being all happy and.
Or at least they say so.
I saw Diggs smirk at the chaotic part, because we talked about being chaotic good last show, but I have honestly never had a thought of changing, so. I equally understand my role and my amount of what I am physically capable to dedicate. So I'm more passive, I guess, because I'm almost like, okay, well, you tell me where you think I will best fit within everything. It's sure autonomy, but I'll be also just sort of, all right, what do you want me to do?
That's an interesting approach, I think, in terms of, because so much right now with COE is focused on these titles and these governments and so on, and it's at the end of the day a very small part of the game almost, right? Like, we've talked before last time I was on here about, for the average player, they're not going to be worried about what the count's doing with the Duke and what the Duke's doing with the King and so on. And so I feel that philosophy should carry over to an extent to government handling. I don't want my count's entire job to be, interacting with me. You need to look at your county and what you want to do with it and your own.
Oh, I'm going to have fun with it, for sure. But equally, it's sort of, I also understand. That's why I've been looking at smaller things, let everyone else that's going to be a little bit more involved pick what they want. And I'll kind of see what's left, look at something smaller.
Get a nice cozy county.
Yep.
What's your actual title going to be? Is it going to be Grand Duke? Is that tribally correct?
Tribally, it will just be Duke, I'm pretty sure. Sev, I believe, has the opportunity to rename titles if he likes. I don't know if he's going to go through and deal with that, but it'll be Duke at this point. I like to say Grand Duke.
That's because you're the Bland tribe.
That's because we're the Bland tribe. We don't have hosts or so on, sadly.
Okay.
Diggs, I can tell you're disappointed by that.
I'm disappointed by that too. Like,
You were excited.
I'll be honest. I'm personally kind of disappointed in that, so don't worry.
Diggs, you were excited about the idea of hostess, and I mean, you talked about that for a little bit.
I am, but everybody doesn't have to be different.
Thank you.
It's okay. And so I'm wondering, talked about interaction with the players. Part of what I'm wondering in terms of why I was asking about EP is that's before we start the game. Then once we get in the game, do you know what kind of tools you will have to nudge your NPC subjects to move the way you would like them to move across your chessboard?
So I think you mean that and besides just literally having them move to different areas, I think you mean like making them pursue the professions I would like or the religion I would like, stuff like that, right? I think for the most part, from what we've gathered from SBS, it's going to be based on a system of incentive. So, you might be like, okay, let's take a real world example. I have a population of Kipik in my duchy, specifically closer to the border of Valyria and the few border counties. More than likely, they're going to be of the Fade and Faith. The majority of the characters in my duchy will likely be of the Praetori Faith. I personally like the Praetori Faith. Let's say I would enjoy if those Kipiks would convert to the Praetori Faith. It's unlikely that we're going to have something like a point system where you say, oh, if you accumulate a certain amount of religious power, you can convert these Kipiks. But more likely, if I could say something like, hey, Kipiks in these counties, Praetori people have the incentive of having cheaper housing in this area, perhaps. I built a few parcels of land. They have cheaper housing than usual. If you're Praetori, maybe you can get in. That's just an off-the-board example. It's not necessarily something I'm looking to do, but in general, I think that is the way we'll be influencing NPCs, basically saying, hey, the pasture's greener here. If you go do the thing I want to do, you get a greener pasture. So I don't know how effective that will actually be, but we'll see.
We interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast with a breaking news event on the Angelica server. An announcement has been made. His Royal Majesty Archibald von Roth, King of Tyria, is pleased to announce his engagement to the Lady Regina Ortharian, eldest daughter and heir to His Grace Reginald Ortharian, Grand Duke of Aquitania, in order to unite the duchies of Rothenburg and Aquitania together in consideration for the House of Ortharian's loyalty to the crown and the fondness shared between their houses. Upon the royal marriage, Lady Regina is to be crowned Queen Consort of Tyria with all rights and privileges and appurtenances thereto, upon a future date to be set by the auspices of the Holy Virtori, interjecting here, lame church.
Wow.
What did you just say?
I said that
marriage, basically.
So
marriage and merchant.
Tyrion placement was interesting because I don't know that anyone expected the King of Tyria to place Rothenburg in that far northeast corner. Yeah, it didn't appear to be a seat of power or anything, but Aquitania occupies an area that has been long desired. The Duke, who I'll be working with, I'll be settling in his territory, was originally looking at that area. But the combination and merging of those two areas creates a very large power center just south of Valyria there. I think it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And so which two was that?
Rothenburg.
Aquitania and
Rothenburg is the king's duchy. Aquitania is the double duchy, and to the west. And I think that changes a little bit of the way we think about that part of the world.
Yeah.
I actually wish we could see two kings decide to do that.
I kind of
Or
like
two
it
queens,
because it
maybe,
means the folks in the north are gonna really have their resources split between the ports in the east and the ports in the west. If they're more or less the two royal what fors there at the middle of the land bridge. That's the other thing, claiming that part of the land bridge. That's a really interesting place to have your royal stronghold, not inland, but instead at this kind of, bridging point. If anybody wants to go by land between north and south, they have to go through there.
Somebody make the wild speculation so that I don't have to do it.
What are you talking
What
about?
you got?
You have to do it because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, that this was part of the plan and an arrangement beforehand, right?
Probably.
That was part of the motivation for the pick.
Yeah, Aquitania has been in Tyria for a very long time, so I could absolutely see that having been on the books.
In which this is, in a way, when we get to Generation 2, a passing of the torch from one house to another. Because Aquitania is the larger house.
Mm-hmm.
Possible. I just hope Regina is happy with the marriage and she finds true love in it. I think that's the most important thing when it comes to political marriage.
Yeah, these things are not about love. What are you talking about? Love.
That was a polite quote to keep forever.
What's love got to do with it?
So my wife is really into English history, so I've watched a lot of, all of the old kings and queens. That doesn't really work out, so.
No, very often does not. It's actually funny because it's called Aquitania, and historically Eleanor of Aquitaine, who was married to the King of England, had a very rough relationship with him and did not like him. So,
I mean, it still is just very interesting. One of the things that I've really loved about this process is and I wish we had a way to keep it all documented, really, is the stories that are already, coming about this sort of thing. Our last show, that was when there was the whole, 4 duchies that sort of said we're going to form our own.
the Solarius Confederation. That was a very interesting development.
I mean, it's just, we're not even through. Are we halfway through DSS yet? And, you're already starting to get into these sort of big implications for something that's not even going to be around for quite a while. So.
For quite a while, yeah.
Yeah, there has been this week, as I've taken on the role of the ambassador of Riftwood, so I've been pulled into all kinds of conversations about things that, couldn't possibly manifest for years, right? But the level of engagement and the level of care involved and how players feel about all of that is still real. Even if the people who initiate ideas or initiate alliances or conflicts, the people that come into the community later get brought into that, and that carries forward, and it becomes this generational thing of when people come into the game and how they're birthed into the community. But it also, there's huge room for totally new ideas and huge communities to arrive that have different ideas. And at every step of the way, it's going to be pretty exciting, I think. We have ideas of who the most volatile people are on the server, but by the time it really comes around, that can shift dramatically.
Yep. There was once upon a time on Angelica a widespread concern that the only kingdom on Angelica would ever be Blackheart, and SBS was just giving them the server, and why wasn't there anything else, and look how the political climate's completely changed now. It's very interesting to see, but there's still, even if things have completely changed, those past events still do have some impact on where we are today. It has shaped where we've come and how people still interact with each other. Very interesting.
I mean, you could write a mini novel a series of short stories of the history already. It's just fascinating.
It is.
So, Polite, can you tell me why you have so many forts on the border with your king's duchy?
That's. I mean, you gotta ask Snipe Hunter and Cassian about that one, because I didn't put up there.
I don't think it's their. That's your duchy, man. That's your duchy.
It is my duchy. I'm looking at using that actually as a good military reserve to both assist the royal duchy in defense as well as to assist the counties to the south for that. So I'll make use of them for being there. It was quite strange. I've mentioned that to my King Sev as well. Like, why do we have them going to the east like that when they should be going?
Maybe you don't know what you don't know.
Maybe we have a history. I could work that into the lore of my duchy. Maybe in the past we weren't very trusting of the royal authority, and so we, kind of did a little build-up.
Maybe Red Pool doesn't like Fawn Spring.
Yeah, maybe.
At the county level.
I seriously wonder, especially after those four sort of decided to, how many people are out there like, hey. Yeah, I'm just curious. We talked about this will be a test of social norms and how well relationships actually form across sort of an electronic medium. Like that first 3 months of this game being released, it's like what will exist. So I wonder, you see this happen and how many people, hey, I'm going to kind of on the low just sort of reach out to them. I'm just excited for what may happen. Not to mention the whole idea of thousands of extra people who really don't care what we've planned for years come in. And then what happens?
And then what do they do? What is their decisions? Yeah, they can go so many different ways.
Yeah, they don't know anything about the repercussions for going in and being a jerk. And so people just go in, they roll up their character, they go start attacking people. They get their first taste of the punishment system and like, you know what? Screw it. I'm done. And all of those jerks have an OPC in the world. It's like, all right, we've got ourselves a bunch of criminals. Awesome.
You corrupt your OPC for the rest of his life, and that he just continues what he knows.
Yep. Well, that's going to be fun, is all the people that come in don't think it's their cup of tea, and then their OPC is going along, and then, I don't know, maybe halfway through their life, they get an email. It's like, hey, your characters have reached the 50% life point. They've done this, this, and this. It's like, what? Really? I wasn't even there. I better go back in and see what's going on.
I mean, that'd be a big draw, right? I mean, I would assume for any game.
That'd be very interesting. I haven't considered that aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
Getting your players to, because inevitably there's always a big rush in and then you fall off. So it's how do you get those people to come back? Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a cooked in way to say, hey, you've not physically been here, but look, your character has continued to grow and done all this, and you
have kids.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help but be interested, right?
Oh man, the way they could do that open email and be like, your children want to see you, and you're just like, what?
Well, seriously, what will they be able to do? Or you get an email that your character just got sent to jail. I mean, it's there's a lot of things that can come from that. That'd be super interesting.
There is. A lot the engine could just generate up from that.
I mean, if I had an email from Blizzard saying, hey, your character, is doing some just unexpected thing, I would log in to find out why. I mean, that's just sort of, I think, human nature to do that. So, and I'm very excited to explore the scripting part. That's something I'm really, and I will see. I will, of course, talk with you about it beforehand, how much I can incorporate that actually into governing and that sort of thing within a county. But
that's kind of an odd, what's the in-game version of the person who makes the scripts? Is that like a behavioral therapist or something? I don't know who what is the name of the person? A life coach? It's like, here, do all of that.
Well, can we share scripting? Because I mean, that can.
Like a set
that,
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Because that.
Scripting will be shared. From what we understand, it'll
I mean,
be
that would.
it'll be TypeScript.
I mean, it'll be a viable profession.
Yeah,
to a degree.
Make
I literally write TypeScript for a living. It is my job.
I mean, to a degree, but eventually it'll probably all get shared to where it's no longer, you'll have an online database of what to do. But,
I think there's going to be such levels of complexity in the trees and minutia and specificity of what you want your character doing that it's going to be inexhaustible. It's probably going to be more like a modular, like, gee, we've got this, like, behavior builder. You can just pick and choose relative to what your character does. Not sure what you want to do? Here, SBS built this import tool where you can just grab a copy of your character digitally and drop it in, and we'll tell you what to do. Like, I'm really excited to see how all of that works. It's going to be pretty fun.
Especially with Prologue as a testing ground for such things, that you can just be like, hey, here's an offline demo. Let's run this thing and see what he does.
Yeah. Oh,
so what does an offline Duke do?
Hopefully not die. I mean, we'll have to see. It's interesting because, you want to say for the administration of people and a duchy and so on, how much of that can be done by a script, how much of that you need to be sure that you're logging on for. So maybe my guy might, because I want to do alchemy, so he might actually be doing alchemy when I'm offline. Get skill increases for that, but we'll see.
I figure for positions of power like that, it would be taking the general NPC, like nobody filled this seat, nobody filled this position, vacuum of power, only NPCs, whatever the situation. That would be kind of what it goes to by default, because that will at least have the basic set of properties and protocols and everything to maintain the duty of a Duke or whatever it is that, the offline. Because even if you are regularly playing the game, you're not there all the time. So when you're not there, your character's going to be doing something.
They got to fill in the gap somehow.
I'm actually very happy that you're interested in alchemy, because one of the things that is very interesting to me is this whole idea, and I think we've talked with Snipe about it, just the whole idea of breeding and sort of trying to discover new traits within plants and just sort of over time creating things that can't be found anywhere else, which will fit in perfectly with farming and in turn probably alchemy.
Yeah. For me, it was this idea that there's going to be this whole system of knowledge to understand and discover the world. There's elements to Illyria, there's a chemistry to it. Go out and discover that. That's super really interesting to have in a game.
Yeah. I'm all about testing and keeping track, and I still write things, write it down, and I've gone through 1.5 legal notepads already trying to figure out maps and coordinates so far, which is a totally different discussion. So,
before we finish up and I do our drawing for the next 600 EP winner, I want to give Polite the opportunity to, really plug your duchy. Like, I want you to give the most convincing join Sanctaphandri right now as a mayor, as a count, as whatever. What is your pitch? And we will rate this pitch against Selene's pitch.
Oh boy.
Afterwards.
Okay. I
have to sit this out.
Well, you're already a member.
Yeah, you already made the right decision. You don't have to about yourself. All right, so to speak to the people of Illyria in that case, if you're looking for a domain, a place to make your home in, especially NA West, you can go no better than Sanctaphandri, let me say. If you want a Duke who is looking to be as much as he can an asset to you to get you to a place where you can do better in the game and enjoy yourself, you need to look no further. If you want a kingdom that is both passionate about doing well in the game, but also understands when to take a moment to step back and just enjoy the way things are going, even if they're not going that well, but they will in the future. Ashland is your kingdom. If you want a place where you know that there's already a wealth of people who have made plans, who have lived together for a long time and honestly do love each other, Sanctaphandri has that. If you want wide open counties that yet haven't been claimed by other people and, an opportunity for you to come in and do that, we have that. If you want settlements that are probably rich and, you're not going to be competing with the hordes of Vornair mayors, we have that as well. Sorry, Vornair, not trying. We got everything, really, honestly. If you're looking for a great community that is not looking to be too serious, likes being polite, we got it for you. So,
Well, thank you very much. I'll let you sort out your differences. It's awesome that Selene here says that the core of this message is if Selene makes you cry, come to me. I have tissues. But we do need to draw a winner before we finish up. Do we like winners? That was a great pitch, by the way.
I just hope that it was. I just hope that your winner is in chat, so we're not sitting here for several minutes trying to find someone that's in chat.
If you're not in chat, I'm going to draw again.
good luck to the person who wins.
I'm drawing. We're doing a draw.
Put your sandwich down. Wipe your hands off. Get ready to type in chat.
I'm looking
That's
for
no
someone.
sandwich.
I'm looking for someone to call. Someone called Pap. P-A-P-P. Pap.
P-A-P-P. Come collect your EP.
Pap.
Is there a Pap here? Pap.
You left your lights on in the party.
I do not see one in the chat, but this is...
Pap chicken app, yes.
If you are here, this is a lesson in why you should use the same handle across everything you do. Actually, that is great. Pen, pineapple, apple, pen. That is definitely what... Wait, how did you spell it? P-A-P-P.
I am redrawing.
All right.
I'm now looking for somebody called Howl Phoenix.
Howl Phoenix. Phoenix is don't howl. You got the wrong creature.
Maybe if they're angry enough, they screech, don't they?
So while we're
I ain't
sitting...
never seen a bird go. "Ooh."
So then if you know that person,
hilarious, actually.
have them come in here and claim real quick.
Yeah, make
I
him
know
hurry up.
Hal. I don't know Hal Phoenix. It's Tora? Yeah, it's a Tora. Get Tora in here.
So while we're waiting, I will say that everything Polite just said, since I've been involved with Sanctaphandri and Ashland, I mean, it's been nothing, but there's been absolutely no negativity. So, I will say that that's been... I don't get too interactive with everyone, but I mean, even just browsing through Discord, there's really... I mean, everybody's pretty happy, so...
Countdowns to the EP.
Yeah, we got to do a timeout. It's probably someone who's waiting for their name to be drawn, right? Yeah.
Just give it to Polite. I'm sure Polite will give it to Tora.
I don't need more EP. I can buy my own BB. Thank you, though.
Usernames is usernames.
Sorry, Selene, but we did say you have to be present to win. So
Yeah, I gotta... This will be a story to tell. Polite does not need it. I'm pretty sure he does not need that. I'm pretty sure when he needs things, he will acquire them. 3, 2, 1, repicking winner because I can't wait 15 seconds before my countdown.
we're on the third person here.
I'm looking for Molten Darkness.
Well, there you go. All right, we're
They
good.
were chatting before.
I have seen this person in chat.
Yep.
Yeah, there. Yeah. Congrats.
All right.
Congratulations.
Send me the message. I just need to know your account name so that I can send you some EP. Thank you very much for hanging out. And I know this isn't your first time. We're happy to have anyone coming out. If you have ideas for future show topics or anything, our Discord, there's a link on the Twitch page. Join. Everyone is welcome. We really appreciate just people hanging out and talking about games.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure.
So if people aren't aware, this is Polite's second time with us, and just as awesome as the first time. So actually, before we go, I just want everyone else, so we talked about this beforehand. We didn't do a big thing about it because most people haven't known us for the last 5 years, but we've actually been doing this for over 5 years now. Was it a week ago? A week or two ago was actually a 5-year anniversary for us doing what started off as called Theoryforge Fridays. So we will be here hopefully in 5 more.
So I recently shared with people the episode from May 2nd, 2005, when we had Snipe Hunter on, and he was working on Revival when Ilphonic was still the publisher, and we did the permadeath episode that Velix led. Velix was from 10 Ton Hammer. He was one of the founding members of the show. And so we had a conversation where we basically described our dream permadeath environment, or my dream permadeath environment, being what a year later was proposed in the Chronicles of Valyria Kickstarter. And that it's like that's how long we've been doing this stuff.
All started with Landmark.
Yeah, it was still Sony Online Entertainment when we started this.
It was.
They were still doing a fan show every year.
They were.
I still streamed every night. Could you imagine that happening in real life?
No. All right, well, Polite, thanks again. As always, welcome to come back, and we would happily have you come back. So thanks again. And everyone, we will be back on Wednesday. So next week will be another Wednesday, Friday week. So, and who was it, Sog, that we have next? You did the schedule.
John Warren on Wednesday.
Yes, that's right.
And Prime Stefan from Riftwood. Prime is the Genoan King.
Oh, King title, yeah.
Title, and he has embraced that title as the Genoan King. So we will have Stefan, and then we're going to do a little bit of outreach for future shows. Yeah. We have a couple of people to talk to.
Yeah, we had started off doing this with.
Can I interrupt? I want a guest from Aranor. We have not had a guest from Aranor yet. So if introductions would be appreciated. We have not had a guest from Tyria. I could reach out to Syntax or Cersei or someone and ask them, but I don't know who's open to being on a show. I do that part. If you guys know someone from Valyria, Tyria, or Aranor, we'd like to support more of the NA West server. We want to branch out when it feels right, when there are good people to talk to, but we want to include voices from all of the kingdoms and really do our best to support the server as a whole.
Hell yeah.
So with that, everyone have a great weekend, and we will see you on Wednesday. See you.
See you later.